Yo, I got some crazy shit to tell y'all, boy. I'm standing there in line and shit, and this lady comes, bro, and she's like kind of like behind me or whatever, right? And she goes, "How you doing, young man?" I said, "I'm good." She goes, "Yeah, you are." And I was kind of, I turned around, so laughing. She goes, "You live around here?" I said, "No, ma'am." I said, "I just work around here." She said, "I done seen you around here a few times." She says, "Do you deliver over to such and such apartment building?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Oh, I live over there." She said, "You know what? You quite the topic of discussion sometimes amongst the older women over there." So I started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, I've heard that once or twice." She goes, "Well, you probably should believe it, son." So I turned back around. She goes, "Let me ask you." She said, "Let me ask you something." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You like doing what you doing?" And now I'm like this. I took my glasses off, and I turn around, look at it, and I start laughing. I'm like, "Yeah," I said, "My job's pretty straight." I said, "It allowed me to have a comfortable living. Like, what's up?" So she goes, "Okay." She said, "That's wonderful. That's wonderful." She says, "But I think me and you can make some money, young man." Now I'm like, So I walk up there to pay for my sunflower seeds and whatnot. So, as I'm about to leave the door, she says, "Wait for me right there by the door." She said, "We got finished talking." So now I'm like, what the fuck is this lady got to talk to me about, bro? So she comes outside, like, on my soul. She comes outside. She goes, "Yeah." She said, you got the perfect fit." She said, "And you got a pretty smile." She said, "Oh, yeah, man, you can make a lot of money, baby. Me, you can make a lot of money." So I'm walking to my truck, I'm popping this. I'm like, "What are you talking about? What kind of money?" She said, "Let me put my stuff in my car, and I'm gonna come over and talk to you for a minute." So she comes over to me, and she's like, "How does 50-50 sound?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, bro?" So then she goes, "What I'm talking about is you gotta like and share for part 2, because this shit is crazy. Never heard nothing like it in my life." So I said, "What you mean 50-50? What are you talking about?" She goes, "Young man," she said, "I'm talking about pimping you out, baby." On my soul, this is what she said to me. I looked at her. I said, "Huh?" She goes, "Yeah, baby." She said, "I'm telling you, me and you can make some money." She said, "Because that's all they talk about, the mailman, the mailman, the mailman." She said, so I'm sitting there thinking, we can make some money together, baby. So I started laughing. I said, "Girl," I said, what you talking about?" I said, "What you talking about?" She said, "Hear me out." She says, "We can start off small." So I'm like, "What?" "What do you mean small?" She said, she said, "I've been thinking about it." I'm talking about, this lady had a whole plan, y'all. Like, the shit was crazy. She said, "Maybe she said, I figured maybe we could start for like 30 minutes. She's like 15 to 30 minutes. She said, you just come over and you just talk to him. She said, and then the next session, she said, maybe you can add in a shoulder rub. She said, in the next session, she said, maybe you can add in some wine. She said, then we just work our way on up to next thing you know, you in a bed." And I'm looking at this lady, and I'm laughing my ass off, but she's not laughing, y'all. She's like kind of got this mischievous look on her face, like, you feel what I'm saying? So I said, as much as that sounds good, I said, but you gotta think about it. I said, there ain't gonna be no talking. I said, they ain't gonna want to talk. I said, there's just no way they gonna want to sit there for 30 minutes and talk. I said, they gonna want to get straight to it. She said, "That's why we gotta work up to it." She said, "Because what the hell?" She said, "You start off small," she said, "and it's like a climax." She said, "You just work up to it." She said, "To the point where now they're craving you, they're wanting you more and more and more." She said, "So they just gonna keep giving you this money." She said, "Let me tell you something." She said, "There's a lot of lonely women out here who got money that just ain't getting to spend it on." Shut your bitch ass up. She said, "But me and you," she said, "Man," she said, "you can keep your job." And I was like, hold on, let me hold you there. I said, as good as that sound, I said, "You are missing the one important thing." She said, "I think I got everything down, baby." She said, "What am I missing?" I said, "The fact of I work over here." And she gets quiet. She was like, "Damn." She said, "You do?" I said, "So let's say I was eager to jump onto your little thing, right?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Then what if something goes left between me and somebody and I'm in this mailroom and they walk in here and see me, and then next thing you know, it's a whole big ordeal." Then she sat there. She was like, "Fuck, man." She said, damn, I didn't think about that. She said, I had it drawn up in my head. She said, but you are my mailman. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, so that would not work, bro. That would not work. She said, shit. She said, you gonna be back over there? I said, I'll go over every day. She said, I'm gonna think about something. She said, but me and you, we gonna get paid, bro. And I just sit there and I just think to myself, what in the actual hell made you come up with this elaborate plan to, oh, I'm a pimp the mailman out. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what kind of shit do you, like, what, bro? Bruh, I'm telling you. Boy, I need a GoPro.